So let me introduce our first speaker, Tim Johns. Tim has worked in the communications business for over 20 years now at some huge companies like Unilever, BT and Sainsbury's. He's also a blogger, a regular conference speaker and visiting lecturer at Westminster University. Tim Johns, thank you.
I also have a cold, so please forgive the slightly growly voice. Thank you very much. Great to be here. Nice to have such a convenient location. It only meant I left at 5:45 this morning to drive from Surrey, but I found it, so thank you very much. We have done this once before in Bristol. It went to huge acclaim, and very, very well indeed. I found myself quite boring, but I found the questions really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that bit, because we do learn a lot from different experiences. I'm going to just very quickly set the scene in a couple of ways. One is give a view of what content marketing is, in my view. Secondly, why it's important and what the opportunities are. And what you can learn from big corporates, because as often is the case, things come into fashion, they start, and then they trickle into the rest of the rest of the world. And I think we can see what they're doing and how you can learn from that. But first, I'd like to sort of start by trying to give my view of why content marketing is important. And there's, for me, a couple of main reasons. The first is that people aren't listening to normal messages anymore. There's so much noise out there, so much white noise, that trying to get cut through of message in traditional channels is becoming more and more complex. You only have to think about the last 4 weeks of the election to realise just how people will filter out messages. They're too busy. The language is wrong. The language was certainly wrong in many instances in the election campaign. The channels they used were wrong. All these things were just not landing. I was at a dinner last night. It was one of these political things, and the main speaker was the ITN anchor, so full of all the BBC and ITN politics people. And my question was exactly what did the election campaign do? Did it actually make any difference whatsoever? And actually, the sophologists amongst you probably know that a lot of evidence to say that people made up their mind 2 years ago, really, and then this was just a reaffirmation of that. But in terms of communication, it's really important to think about how do people listen to messages, how do they receive messages, and what is it with traditional channels. So one of the big issues, and I do bow to supreme knowledge, but trust in society is a real issue, and Edelman, one of the top PR companies in the country, have been tracking trust in society globally for a number of years now. And against nearly all metrics and against all audiences, trust is declining. We do not defer to people in the way we used to, be they senior leaders, politicians, even medical practitioners, or indeed CEOs. So the normal way of getting messages is becoming more fragmented. On the other hand, the people we do trust most are people like ourselves, PLUs as they're called. So if you think of even on Amazon, it says people like you bought this book. Now that's not actually a real person. You know it in your mind it's not a real person, but it feels like a real person, as if you're joining a kind of a virtual book club. So actually, people like ourselves, so if you know somebody in your network and you say, well, you should try this, that is a good recommendation. Secondly, employees, and please never ever underestimate the importance of employees in all communication. Whatever size your business is, employees are the most trusted people when it comes to sharing messages. The other big change, of course, is the decline in traditional channels and the increase in social media. Now, I don't think anybody here needs to be told. Which one are you?
I can relate to that.
Yes. So the point is that nobody needs a lesson in social media, but every day, how many people, by the way, today have bought a newspaper?
There's always one.
Okay, so. And how many of you are going to buy a newspaper during the day? Okay, so the point is we are finding our information in different ways from different sources, and traditional channels are fragmenting. We have citizen journalists, we have bloggers, we have, you know all this. We have news aggregators. So you're going to Google or Yahoo to get all your curated news. You're going to other trusted sources, Brain Pickings, Vox, or whatever. Every day there's a new way of receiving news. And the other thing is that this has led to, so if you see a decline in trust on the one hand and the fragmentation in the media on the other, is changing habits. The way we consume our media has changed. So gone are the days where you would, in fact, I was talking about Unilever earlier. I mean, 30 years ago, Unilever knew more about the shopper than anybody else. And what it would do is it would make an advert and it would play it to the 15 million people who are watching TV and tell them what to buy, basically. Those days are gone. Those days are completely gone. Not only are you not watching adverts, you're whizzing through them, you're watching on catch-up TV or whatever. People want something else from their communication. They want a conversation. They want to engage. They want to know what's the difference between push and pull. Push messages, people will reject. They're too busy, wrong language or whatever. Pull is an engaging way of communicating. So all these things make a huge difference. So the rise of Twitter and Facebook are ways of sharing as opposed to telling. And you'll see this, as I'm sure you do in both with your own families and your children, but also young people coming to the workplace. They have a different way of communicating than they did in the past. So content marketing. What is content marketing? How do organizations communicate with their audiences? For me, content marketing is very simply creating the right messages and curating them at the right time in the right way. So the how is very, very simple. The how is just making them relevant, engaging, and using multiple channels. That's all it really is. It's actually making relevant content. And the what is storytelling. We forget just how important storytelling is in terms of human behavior, sitting around the campfire, talking, sharing. Actually, the human narrative is the most effective way to communicate. And too many businesses and politicians speak in languages which are irrelevant. They're not conversational languages. They're manufactured content. They're not the way you would talk around the dinner table with your family. Engaging stories. Businesses, big businesses especially, have this terrible, terrible habit of communicating through figures. So they get all the figures, they add them all up, and they say, this is how well we're doing. And they think that's how they communicate to their staff and to everybody else. It doesn't work, because the figures are not a representation of anything other than the figures. The narrative of where you're going, the vision, the picture, the story you're telling is hugely compelling, and the figures should illustrate that, not the other way around. So finding ways to talk openly and communicate an engaging way is what content marketing is. And now, because of the fragmentation of the media, you too can be a broadcaster. You too can have your own channel. You too can create your own content. The media are under, the traditional media, under enormous pressure. No one's buying their products, as you can see. So they are looking for content. They are looking for content on the one hand. Secondly, we can bypass those by using very clever metrics, which Steve will talk about a bit about. And we can find ways of targeting people and then giving them relevant content. We can create our own channels. So content marketing is really about storytelling and packaging up using multiple channels to tell your story. Now, how do big businesses do it? It's funny, a long time ago, when I first was a young boy doing this game, using video was, again, it was almost broadcasting. Some of the great companies who were doing this a long time ago, like Ford and Shell, they do corporate TV. But basically what they do is they make a very, very expensive movie. They call their staff into a room to watch a movie. It wasn't quite the same thing as having engaging content. Because when it comes to content, to communication, the best way to communicate is face-to-face. Everything else is second best. However, when you are, for instance, HSBC is working across multiple time zones, multiple locations, and multiple languages, and multiple numbers of staff. It is not possible for their senior leaders and their people to communicate face-to-face all the time with everybody. Therefore, they use video and they use movies as the best way to bring visible leadership and engaging content to everybody. And you don't have to do it in a broadcast way. You make short clips and people can pull back whenever they want. So again, this is what HSBC is doing. Another big bank, Barclays. Barclays makes different content for different channels. So for instance, its Football League sponsorship has its own channel content where it's pushing out more information. So you won't see much. If you do press coverage, Cal, about Barclays, you'll see most of its coverage to do with the Football League is just Barclays Football League. There's nothing about it. But actually, if you want to engage about the sport and about what's going on, you go online, it's all there, and that's where people are having the conversation. Another one is Tesco. So this is a quite interesting one. Tesco had a really interesting issue 6 months ago with milk prices and producer prices. It wasn't getting its message across through the traditional media because the traditional media only wanted to hear one story, which is Tesco bad, evil milk producers good, whatever it is. So this way, it was a way of getting their message to the people they wanted to in a very authentic, engaging way, content marketing. Sainsbury's, CSR. Everybody does CSR now, so it's become a hygiene factor. Trying to get any coverage for how good you are at CSR is becoming increasingly difficult. Sainsbury's have done a lot of very, very good things, felt very rightly proud of it. What they did is they made very, very short clips using humour and their own staff. These are very funny, if you like that kind of thing. They're 45, 50 seconds long, and they use their own staff, real people, to tell a story about, in this case, bananas. And they went viral because they are relevant content, they're interesting, they're engaging, it's a story, it's not a brochure, it's not an email, it's not a press release, it's not a dull, dusty thing in the Telegraph, which clearly nobody reads. It's engaging content which, to get it out there. And the final thing I'd say before Steve takes you in terms of a bit more targeting, is that the success of all these things is about multiple channels. Multiple channels. There is no longer one way to sell your message anymore. It is about engaging content and letting other people be your channel director. So if you post it in one place, you have to allow people to engage with it. Because one of the big differences, I keep saying that, one of the many big differences in the past few years is that the online world has moved away from websites to web space. Okay, so website is your own website. So you post stuff on your website and you go, why isn't anybody coming? Well, why would they come to your site for a conversation? Why would they do that? You have got to go where the conversation is. So you have to create content which can be shared in other places. That is what content marketing is. It's about storytelling, about curating, and then multiple channels to allow your story to be told.